Warren Buffett, right here now to talk about the jobs market and also about the future of the economy. Warren, great to have you with us here.
Thanks for having me.
Finally, the light is coming through.
Yeah, great.
Wish the weather was a little bit warmer. Okay, with the jobs market, since Obama was sworn into the presidency, we've lost 2.5 million jobs here in the United States. Why are you so confident that we're going to get those jobs back?
Well, because the American economy works that way. I mean, we have gone through, I don't know how many recessions, perhaps 15 in the history of this country. And for a while, we used to call them panics at one time, and then we called it a depression, we call it a recession now. But our system overshoots periodically. And in this particular case, we had a huge bubble. So the fact that there's a correction after that really is not should not be unexpected. But our system always comes back, and it will this time. And it already is.
And you think that we will come back, let's say, 2.5 million jobs, or come back and recover most of it by the elections of next year?
I think there's a good chance of that. We will come back big time on employment when residential construction comes back. And we way overproduced in houses. I mean, we were forming 1 million or 1,200,000 households, and we were building close to 2 million residential units. Well, big surprise, we end up with too many houses. We're not going to blow them up. We're not going to have kids start getting married at 12 or something. So there's a natural correction, and the only way a correction takes place is to have households formation exceed new construction by a significant amount for a significant period of time. Okay. We've had it for quite a while, and when you see these figures of 500,000 or 600,000, that means we're sopping up housing inventory, and I don't know exactly when that hits equilibrium. But it isn't 5 years from now, I know that, and I think it actually could be reasonably soon.
But what gives you that conviction? I mean, is it something from your business that is telling you this?
No, it's more just looking at the data as to how many it looks like we overproduced in the past, and you get some feeling from absorption. We do have a large real estate firm, the second largest in the country, but we're not seeing it yet. There's no indication yet, but it's just as well we stay here at 500,000 or 600,000 until we really have sopped it up, and then we'll get these figures moving back to 1 million or 1.2 million, and you will be surprised, in my view, how fast employment changes when that happens, because it won't just be construction jobs. It'll be our carpet company and our insulation company. All those jobs move with that. It'll be goods moving on our railroad, all kinds of things.
So when all that happens in Warren, where is the unemployment rate going to stand in your view?
Well, it'll move down a long way.
What's a long way?
Well, certainly, I think that certainly within a few years, we'll see it back at 6.
Back at 6%?
I would think so.
Okay.
Yeah.
By the end of next year?
No, I don't know about that. It just depends when housing turns.
Okay. But no doubt, though, that the jobs market has been really spotty. Hiring has been really spotty. 1 year, 1 month we're up by a couple 100,000. The next month we're down by, into just 50,000 or so. Why are CEOs having such a hard time hiring consistently?
Well, you hire when you have demand. I mean, at our railroad, we went from 219,000, that was our peak week of car loadings. That got down to about 151 or 2,000. You lay off a lot of people when that happens. We're probably, leave aside the flood problem, we're normalized, we're probably at about 190,000 now. You add a lot of jobs when that happens, but you don't add jobs unless you got more cars to carry. And that is true in all our businesses. That's true, whether it's in our brick business, where we're down a lot on employment, or our carpet business where we're down a lot on employment. At the other hand, on Geico, we've got record employment. So you respond to demand if you're a businessman. And all this talk, you hear a lot of talk about, everyone wants to talk about jobs. Well, jobs come with demand.
And you're not seeing the demand, but...
Well, we're seeing demands a lot of places, but we're not seeing it in the construction field.
Right, it's not consistently across the board. Then is it misguided, in many ways, to look to the White House to try to help create jobs? I mean, Obama's got this jobs council. He's, keeps creating all these councils to create jobs. Is it misguided that way?
Well, people may have to get their expectations too high. I mean, if you look at these 15 recessions we've had since we became a country, and during half that period at least, nobody knew what monetary policy or fiscal policy was. I mean, we cured ourselves, and the system cures itself. And I would say that that's the biggest single factor. Government can do things to make it worse, and they did in the Great Depression. And government can help some, but
is the president making it worse?
No. The president's not. No. we know the things to do that can help, but they are not, in my view, the prime determinant. I mean, there are things to work through. If you have too many houses, what can government do? I mean, you know, like I say, they can say, well, the 12-year-olds should get married, and then we need a lot of houses. They can say, well, we're going to blow up 1 million houses or something. But as a practical matter, you've got low interest rates. That helps, you know. But that still can be pushing on a string to a degree until you decide to buy a house. But it does mean when you decide to buy one, it's easy to do compared to other periods. So government gets blamed too much, and it may get too much credit when things do improve. But government's a factor. But I would say by far the biggest factor in corrections of the business cycle over time is what I would call the natural regenerative powers of capitalism. Capitalism works.
Because I know you have a pretty close relationship with the president. Back in 2007 at a fundraiser, you said that Obama could, quote, lead us to the right place.
Yeah.
Has he led us to the right place?
I think he's leading us to the right place, yeah. I don't think it's easy to do. And you know, it takes some cooperation from Congress, but he has ideas about what America can and should be that are in sync with mine. It's some of it's social issues and some of it's distribution of wealth and that sort of thing.
Like what? What a lot of issues?
Well, I think, for example, that we've had a period in the last 15 years where the 400 top taxpayers in the United States, if you go back 15 years, they had an average income of about 45 million. Now they have an average income of 350 million in the most recent figures, whereas their tax rates went from 27% down to 16%. That's not my idea of America. I mean, I want everybody to get rich, but I think that the rich have a responsibility to pay higher tax rates.
So that's when you hear him say, targeting the millionaires and the billionaires, you're saying, go get them?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I look around at my friends here are paying lower tax rates than the people that are serving us the food.
But do they agree with you? I mean, when you're here at Sun Valley talking to them, do they agree with you?
I think some do. Yeah, some do, and many don't. But,
and are they still talking to you?
Oh yeah, they talk to me. I mean, they figure I'm harmless, and you know, this guy will only be around a few more years.
The debt ceiling, I know, is a big concern for you. Yesterday you said something to the effect that, you know, we're not going to get a reasonable solution when you've got a gun to your head. What if we don't get a deal, Warren? What happens?
Well, nobody knows, and that's why it's a crazy. I mean, what you do if you don't get a deal, you are putting a gun to your head, and you're saying this cylinder has 6 chambers, and we're going to stick a bullet in one and spin it and pull the trigger and see what happens. Nothing may happen. Nobody knows. We don't have a parallel for it in the past, but it's crazy. I mean, which would you rather have, borrowing in the markets 5 years from now, a U.S. government that's interrupted payments because of a squabble, you know, within its Congress, you know, 535 people that couldn't get together when they knew for months that something was coming up that was important, or would you rather lend to somebody that promptly does what's necessary?
But you could say that, you know, it is the United States. What other alternative do you have, though, to put your?
Yeah, the United States we're a very special place. There's no question about it, and we will pay our debts in the end. So it is not like if we don't pay, we can't pay. We've got the right to print our own money. That's the key. Greece lost the power to print their money. If they could print drachmas, they would not have. You know, they'd have other problems.
Right.
But they would not have a debt problem. And 17 countries in Europe gave up the right to print their own money. That's enormously important. And we've got the right to print our own money. So our credit's good.
I want. Well, the sun has most definitely come up here in Sun Valley. Beautiful. And this, of course, is a big gathering every year where all the moguls, the media moguls, come together to talk about deals, but also to bring their children together. It's a great family vacation. Warren Buffett, as you know, has been coming here for, what, 20 years, I think?
Plus.
He's gone on the record recently saying that he is eager for more big acquisitions, basically an elephant gun. His elephant gun is reloaded. Back in February, he told shareholders, quote, well, that's what he said. He said, our elephant gun has been reloaded and my trigger finger is itchy. Using Buffett's own criteria for acquisitions, well, we came up with 3 possible takeover targets here at Bloomberg. Archer Daniels Midland, General Dynamics, and also Exelon are 3 big companies that may in fact fit into the Berkshire fold. And Warren, I want to ask you, have you ever looked at those companies?
Sure, I'm familiar with all 3 of them.
Yeah? And
my son worked for one of them.
Right,
ADM.
Howard Buffett worked for ADM, right?
Right.
Any of those interest you?
I want to give you a big story, but I wouldn't give it to you on an acquisition.
Okay, but they've been on your list.
Those are the kind of companies we look at, sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's been a few months since you've said your elephant gun is reloaded. Have you gotten more pitches, or what's happened since
Well,
then?
we used, close to $9 billion on Lubrizol.
On Lubrizol,
yeah,
right.
now that hasn't closed yet, but it will, and so that $9 billion is out the window, and so that the gun doesn't have quite as many bullets as it did, but it rebuilds as it goes along, and we bought some equities that we probably spent $4 billion on or something.
Which
like
ones?
That. Which ones? Do
Can
these
you
stocks have
disclose yet?
names?
Yeah.
Yes, right.
Do they have ticker symbols?
Yeah, anything.
But what space are they in? Can you say that?
They're in the space of common stocks. But
They're not technology, I bet.
no, well, who knows? In any event, we would like to find. We're always looking for companies we can buy,
Okay.
and we can't buy quite as big a one as we would have been able to if we hadn't done Lubrizol, for example. But
Right.
the gun does get reloaded as money comes in.
Well, could we see another acquisition, let's say, by the end of this year?
I would hope so, but I wouldn't want to bet on it. There's nothing in the works right now, but the phone can ring tomorrow. That's the way it happens.
Warren, have you changed your criteria at all? When people or banks, when they come up and pitch you ideas, or wherever the ideas come from, has your criteria changed at all from today than it did, let's say, a year or two ago, in terms of, what are the first questions you ask?
No, not from a year or two ago. Over time, it's gotten bigger just because our resources have grown. But other than that, the way we look at businesses does not change.
Okay, and nothing about the economy has
The economy never changes how we feel about a business. I mean, when my partner Charlie Munger and I talk about a possible deal, we don't talk about the economy. It's there, but we know if we live another 20 years, we're going to have a dozen good years, a few terrific years, and a few terrible years. And we don't know in which order they're going to appear, and it doesn't make any difference. I mean, if Coca-Cola came along in 1886, and it went through depressions and all kinds of things, there probably was not a good time to sell Coca-Cola. If you sold it 10 years ago, you'd have sold it at a very fancy price, but you never know that at the time. Overall, we stick with good businesses.
Here, Warren, at Sun Valley, obviously, a lot of people are here talking about deals. Are you tempted at all to buy into technology at all? I mean, I know you've been averse to technology companies, but have you? I'm
tempted to buy companies I understand, and if I find one I think I understand, we would buy into it. But it's not because of the name tech. It's because my criteria involve buying companies where I think I know what they're going to look like, and by that I mean their competitive position in 5 or 10 years, and that's a lot easier to do if it's Wrigley's chewing gum than if it's a tech company.
Eric Schmidt, the chairman of Google, he made some comments recently about some of the major tech companies. I just want you to hear what he had to say recently. Let's roll that soundbite.
There are 4 companies which are exploiting platform strategies, I think, very well. Obviously, one of them, in my view, is Google. The other 3 being Apple, Amazon, and Facebook. And each of them, we've not in our industry, and I've been doing this for 35 years, we've never had 4 companies growing at the scale that those 4 are in aggregate.
Warren, did you ever feel you missed the boat on any of those 4 companies?
Well, I did miss the boat, but I don't mind missing boats that I don't know enough to captain.
But really, for somebody who knows derivatives, Warren, I mean, those are some of the most complex financial instruments, I would say, known to man. You can't wrap your head around some of these tech companies?
Well, no, I don't think I can understand all derivatives by a long shot.
Well, more than most.
Well, but a few. I mean, I don't have to understand everything. I just have to be right about the things that I do. Tom Watson Sr. one time said, "I'm no genius, but I'm smart in spots, and I stay around those spots." And there's a lot of truth in that. So I don't have to be right on hundreds of things. I don't have to be right on dozens of things. I can just be right on a few things as long as I know the game in that arena.
You were talking with Mark Zuckerberg yesterday, right?
Right.
What do you think of him?
I think he's terrific. It was a very interesting conversation. I think that Priscilla, his girlfriend, is terrific too.
What did you talk about?
A lot of things.
About his business?
Oh, but we talk about a lot of personal things too.
Did he try to get you to sign on to Facebook?
No, he doesn't. He's got 600 million or whatever it is. One more isn't going to make any difference.
Well, the reason why I ask is I wonder what you think about these social networking companies.
I think obviously, those people have seen a product that, in effect, the customer didn't see himself until he signed on. So you got to admire. I mean, I admire Steve Jobs and people like that when they see something that the customer hasn't yet seen. Henry Ford did it with the car. I mean, that's impressive.
Do you get a sense though that these companies are driving a technology bubble, another one?
Not necessarily a bubble. I mean, the public drives the bubble. If you got Jeff Bezos or Mark Zuckerberg, they go about doing their business very well every day. If people look at them and say, there must be a whole lot of other tulips around, and therefore I'm going to buy any tulip that comes along. It's people and greed that form bubbles. It's not the guy that really turns out the product.
But do you think that that's what we're seeing in some of these valuations? I mean, Groupon at $20 billion, Twitter at $7 billion.
Anytime you see companies that were worth nothing a few years ago become worth 50 or 100 billion, you are going to get people very excited about the fact that they can pick the next one. And you'll get brokers that promise them that they can tell them what they are, and you're going to get a lot of people that are disappointed. Not that easy to create a $100 billion company.
No, I mean, have you, Warren, ever been tempted? I mean, have you been, because I know you read through, you love reading all this, data, and you read through annual reports and also filings. Have you been tempted to read through any of the S1s that these companies have filed?
Oh, yeah. Matter of fact, I asked a couple of them to send me S1s.
Which ones?
Well, I asked a fellow that day, he said he'd sort of copying his company on Berkshire, so I said, well, send me the S1, maybe I'll ask for a royalty.
You mean he was looking at IPOing his company?
They are, yeah.
They are. Can you say which one? Or?
I shouldn't quote him, yeah.
But has there been anything, I mean, have you read the Groupon S1, for instance, or the Zynga S1? I mean, I want to get your take on what you think.
Yeah, I will. Mm-hmm.
And what would you look for in that?
I just find it interesting. I mean, these people have developed very interesting businesses, and a lot of them have imagination and some scale. And no, I read S1s like other people read Playboy. That's what happens when you're 80.
Okay, and I'm looking at that chart right behind you. It does look as if equity futures have gone down, have tanked on this ugly, as Lizzie was describing, an ugly report. You can't describe it any other way. Warren, 18,000 jobs only. Mm-hmm. What do you make of this?
Well, it means that we're still a ways off from getting to be where we should be. But what was the unemployment?
But you're an optimist, right?
Oh, sure. What was the unemployment rate in February of 1950? I don't know. All I know is I bought some stocks that have worked out very well subsequently. It's obviously of enormous importance, to the American economy over time. But we went through in the fall of 2008. As cataclysmic a panic that spilled over, and the financial panic spilled over into the economy, as you can imagine. That's why you had those minus 700,000 figures there for a while. Mm-hmm. That doesn't turn around in a week or a month or even a year. And on the other hand, we are coming back. I can tell you that from our businesses.
Something like this, though, Warren, makes it a lot harder when you're then talking about the debt debate, right? It makes it a lot harder when you're talking about President Obama being reelected, when you see a jobs number like this.
Well, he would not like the election to be held today, I'm sure of that. But in terms of, it's a long time between now and next November. And it will depend really on when housing comes back.
Okay. Right before this, I know you had thought maybe it might even come in a little bit more to the upside, though. I mean, nobody, no. and to everybody's credit, I mean, nobody had thought 18,000 that it would be this big of a miss. Mm-hmm. I want to turn now, though, to Wall Street, because this is part of the economic story and part of the job story, Warren, which is banks and regulation. Simon Johnson, who's been on our program quite a bit, and I know a name that you know very well, has said that too big to fail is still here, that these banks that we've got have only gotten bigger, and that they're basically government-subsidized entities. Is he wrong?
Well, I don't think there's any question that there's a number of institutions that are too big to fail, and we may be seeing that with countries that we're certainly behaving, or Europe is behaving as if they've got a problem with too big to fail, and.
Is Greece too big to fail?
Well, that's what we're Greece is certainly too big to fail from the standpoint of the Europeans if it's going to cause a lot of other peoples to fail. Okay. It isn't. when people talk about too big to fail, what they're worried about is the next domino,
Right.
and will it tilt over other dominoes? And we decided in this country that Freddie and Fannie are too big to fail. There will be institutions that, and they may be government related, that where the feeling isn't so much that they're too big to fail, but that it's too big. They're too big to fail without toppling others and getting a series of dominoes going, which was the problem that we had.
What's
in
the
September.
difference, though?
Well,
is there a difference?
Well, if Lehman could have failed in a vacuum, that would have been one thing. But we learned Lehman couldn't fail in a vacuum.
Now we know, though, that aside from with the regulation debate, we know that you've quite admired, for instance, Lloyd Blankfein, who's steered the bank through
Right.
The crisis. What about Jamie Dimon? He steered the bank through the crisis pretty well.
He's a fabulous banker, and he probably writes the best annual report in America. And I would advise everybody.
I think he models it after you.
No. I grab his report when it comes in, and my friends do too. Now he is a very, very smart banker running a very big bank.
Have you thought about buying into it?
No, we own stock in Wells and USB and M&T, and banking is not going to be as profitable in the future as it has been in the past. Now it can still be plenty profitable, but you make money in banks on assets, and you can have less. You now can have less assets in relation to capital. You can have less leverage, and
Because of these capital requirements.
yeah, so the very nature of it is you'll earn less on capital than was the case a while back, but you can still earn pretty good returns, perhaps. On
But you
capital.
think, though, overall for the health of the economy, these capital requirements are good?
I think reducing leverage in the financial system was a good idea. Leverage causes a lot of problems, and there's a great temptation. And when you have the federal government in effect backing your deposits, so that people don't have any reason to exercise their own judgment as to whether your leverage is too high, you need some leverage requirements.
But a lot of these banks, though, Warren, and you are famous obviously for promoting value investing. I mean, a lot of these banks are trading below their book value. There's got to be a bargain here or there.
Well, I hope so. We own a few of them. Some of them, when they talk about book value, though, some of them, there's a difference between tangible book and stated book. And you earn money on tangible book, not on intangible. I mean, you can earn money on some intangibles, but basically there are a lot fewer that are selling below tangible book than are selling below their stated book.
Okay. Well, Goldman, we know, is one that you did invest in. During this, you had the preferred shares.
We bought preferred shares, and we've got warrants left. They call it our preferred.
And yesterday, you also said that that you were going to exercise those warrants, like you said you would, in 2013.
As long
right?
as the stock's above 115.
Well, that was my question. Is would you exercise them any earlier if they did obviously fall below that 115 strike price?
Well, there'd be no reason to exercise them at all if they're below 115,
right,
because they have no value.
Yes,
but
obviously,
no, the answers were very, very likely. Well, we'll only exercise them if it's above 115. I would expect it.
Okay.
It's likely that it'll be above 115. We will exercise those warrants very close to their expiration date.
Okay. So, can we defer from that? Can we infer from that then that you expect that stock price to rise, or at least, again, as you say, stay above 115 until 2013?
Well, I think there's more chance that it will than it won't, but stocks can do anything.
Right. And the economy can do anything.
Yeah, and they have.
Getting back to regulation, though, Elizabeth Warren, a lot of controversy there about her being consumer finance chief. What is your view on her?
Well, she's made a lot of enemies, obviously, but we needed a lot of correction. And I mean, when you see what happened in the mortgage issuance market of 5 years ago, a lot of things took place that shouldn't have taken place, and it's up to both the industry and the government to correct it. I mean, it's great if the industry does it by itself, but it's clear you need a policeman, and she's a pretty good policeman.
Well, I mean, what has she done so far that you think has been the
well,
right
I can't follow all the details of it, but the main thing to do, in the end, you want people to take out mortgages where it's appropriate for them to do it, and where they know what they're doing, the paper they sign and where they can handle the terms involved in the paper they sign. You'll always have people that lose jobs or there are deaths or something, so you'll have some foreclosures. But you should not have masses of people entering into transactions that they don't fully understand.
Right.
It's such an important transaction in their life. I mean, it's huge. So there's a real job to be done in making sure that people both understand the contract they're getting into and can handle the contract under most circumstances.
Well, aside from Elizabeth Warren, Tim Geithner, obviously, is part of Obama's economic team. There was some news out last week that he was possibly going to step down. And
I hope he doesn't. I think he's terrific.
Well, I was going to say, would it be a big blow if he did?
Well, it would depend on who succeeded him in a number of things. But Tim Geithner, we are very, very fortunate that Tim Geithner has been there during this period.
You've often been talked about that if there was an ideal candidate to replace him or to be Treasury Secretary, you would be. Would you ever do it?
No, no. It's a thankless job, and I've got an easy job now. Why would I trade?
What I want to talk about first, though, is the person that's left Berkshire, David Sokol. It's been a few months since the annual meeting when you pretty much laid out what happened. What's happened since? Have you talked to David since?
I talked to him twice since the press release. Once he was on CNBC the next day, and I talked to him that day for a minute or two, and then about a week later for a minute or two, and that's been it.
And that's been it.
Yeah.
Okay. Have there been any more inquiries from the SEC?
Well, there was an initial inquiry that was labeled informal and voluntary, and pursuant to that, I talked to them one time, and it was not a deposition or anything of the sort, but and it was labeled informal and voluntary, and I was glad to talk to them.
And was it the end of that? That was the end of it?
That was the end of it. Yeah.
Have you looked further into some of Sokol's other interests within Berkshire, like at Mid-American or BYD?
We haven't. We don't. I mean, our audit committee looked to the extent they could, but obviously we don't have any subpoena power or anything like that. So presumably that may get looked at by somebody else, but we don't have that authority actually to do it.
Okay. David Sokol held a special role in some ways at Berkshire. He was somebody that you deployed sometimes when you were looking at deals. I mean, he was the one that helped.
He did a terrific job.
And he helped put together, the deal at BYD, for instance. Do you have anybody now in that sort of role, or do you need anybody now in that sort of role?
Well, it's not exactly that role, but we've got managers that we've got a group of managers that I feel like I've got the 1927 New York Yankees. You may not be familiar with them, but Ruth and Gehrig and a few people.
I think I get the idea.
Yeah, no, we have an abundance of riches in terms of managers, but Dave was a very good manager.
Well, Howard was mentioning a few names. I mean, Matt Rose is one, for instance.
He's a terrific manager.
I mean, is he somebody that you might consider, putting into other, into different types of roles besides?
He's doing pretty well where he is, but he could handle a lot of other things. There's no question about that. But he runs a very big business now and does it. He couldn't do it better.
What about Todd Combs? Has he started buying stocks?
He's bought just 2 stocks so far.
Which ones? Can't say.
I like the way you slide into that.
Well, MasterCard is one that we've been hearing about. Is that true?
Well, I think it showed up on a record that MasterCard was bought, and I'll put it this way, I didn't buy it.
Okay. Got the message on that.
Huge breakthrough.
Now, going forward, though, when he's buying stocks, does he have to clear them with you?
No.
How's the process going?
No. We have a little bit of clearance in the sense that there's a few things he couldn't buy. I mean, just because it'd be awkward. I mean, we wouldn't have anybody buy Microsoft because I'm so close to Bill that people would assume I was getting insider information. So there's just a few little items like that. But no, he can be buying stocks as we talk.
Okay.
Yeah.
And do you have any particular goals for him by the end of the year? Does he have any particular goals by the end of the year?
Well, he has designated a block of money, which he designated, and he can increase or decrease that block at his call. Okay.
Warren, I'm so sad to say that we have to leave it here, but thank you so much. I know you've got a breakfast to go to.
Yeah.
So very much thanks to Warren Buffett here for staying with me throughout the job